Roundtable, joined by ABC contributor and the editor of the Weekly Standard, Bill Kristol, Democratic Congressman Joaquin Castro of Texas, Greta Van Susteren from Fox News, and the editor of the New Yorker, David Remnick. And let me start with you, Bill Kristol. The House did pass that legislation clearing the way for this lawsuit. Some have suggested this is a dangerous strategy for the Republicans, likely to backfire in November.
No, I'm not sure it's the most brilliant thing in the world, but they'll file a lawsuit. The courts will adjudicate it. I suspect they might be denied standing, and I don't think it'll be a big deal.
Even after Joaquin Castro, the president, we just talked to Dan Pfeiffer, seems to be prepared to go forward on these executive orders to expand the number of undocumented immigrants who will not be deported. And you know, we heard Dan Pfeiffer say the president hasn't made a decision, but it is true that you and others are pushing the president to expand this as far as possible. Correct?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, the fact is, George, somebody's got to be working in Washington, and the president is ready to act on immigration reform. The Congress has now had several years, but especially the last two, to do something, and Republicans have failed to move on it. So he will do everything within his power and within the law.
But that's the question. Is it really within his power to expand this by 4 or 5 million immigrants?
Well, absolutely. Remember, the way that he expanded, or that he introduced DACA was deferred action on the students and others by not prosecuting them. And he can do the same thing for other folks as well.
Look, I don't know. I mean, he's probably going to do this, but the real problem is we have an absence of leadership. You know, Senator Harry Reid should be back in Washington. The president should call him back, and the House should be back in Washington. They should resolve this. You know, they all go running to the cameras and say this is a humanitarian crisis, and yet what do? They all get out of town. That's a big problem. I do my job when there's a humanitarian crisis. I don't know, you know, where are they?
And there was a bit of an irony here, David Remnick, at the end of the week after the House first failed before they then passed legislation. Many of the House leaders said, well, the president should go act on his own, even though they were slamming him for doing the same thing.
Well, look, the fact of the matter is the Obama administration has been rather light on executive orders. This is not an administration that ranks very high in the history of the United States in executive orders. The business about a lawsuit and talk of impeachment is pathetic. Yes, it's been taken advantage of in a political way, the talk of impeachment by the Democratic Party.
They are pushing it now.
But it was initiated by the Republican Party. It is a very, very sad spectacle, and history will look back on this Congress with a very, very critical eye and be...
But David,
let me just say, the House Republicans passed legislation Friday night that is, in my view, very good legislation that deals with the border crisis. It is addressed to the border crisis. It increases the National Guard. It makes it easier to deport people.
Well, you know what the Senate would say, Bill? The Senate say we did it a year ago. We passed it.
I'm sorry, wait a second. The Senate bill does not deal with the actual border crisis. You can like comprehensive immigration reform or not. The House passed legislation that deals with the border crisis and addresses the executive order the president issued. The executive order, I'm sorry, the president issued an executive order 2 years ago that has backfired and has been disastrous. It has been a magnet. It has been a magnet. With those undocumented young people be coming here without the executive order.
There is a huge problem here, and the people who are in charge of solving it are the president, the House, and the Senate. And, you know, they ought to all get back to Washington and do their job.
And the House passed legislation, and the Senate didn't.
Terrific. And you know what should happen? The Senate should be back in session. They should vote on it, send it to conference, and let it be resolved. The president showing leadership. And so this is like a classroom where the teacher leaves the room, and all of a sudden there's upheaval in the classroom. The president's not showing any leadership. Instead, he says, I'll just go on my own. Well, that's not how democracy is supposed to work.
Well, and Greta, I agree with you that both the Senate and the House should be working right now to get this done, but the fact is they're not.
And the president, he should be leading them.
The fact is the president has been trying to work with the Congress for the last 2 years to pass comprehensive immigration reform. Now, if the House had taken up the Senate bill, which would have passed, there are enough votes right now that if you put that on the floor, it will pass. That bill will pass. We would have been able to avoid some of the problems that we're seeing now with this border situation. You'd have more Border Patrol, you would have more judges to speed up the process, and a lot of that crisis that we're seeing now wouldn't be.
You would have more of a magnet for people to come north. Amnesty. It turns out that amnesty is a magnet. These folks don't
qualify for DACA. You know that under this executive order, these folks do not qualify for DACA.
But they saw that the previous generation of people who came in were amnestied, and they think they're going to be amnestied.
And that's why,
amnesty is a magnet, I think.
The cartels and coyotes are trying to encourage them to make $7,000 or $6,000 to get them here. But look, we're not going to set our policies based on what coyotes and cartels do. We're going to go to Central America and dispel those myths. And that's what the president's been working on.
David Remnick, Greta says the president should show leadership here, but it does seem, if you look at the range of legislation over the last 4 years. No hope that anything is going to get done.
No, I think he's pretty stifled. It's frustrating at times to see his projection of frustration. You want him to suck it up and keep going at it and leading. But I think history is going to show that this presidency has been stifled at every angle.
But
if I could get in one word, the immigration issue. First of all, I think a lot of people at this table are here because of America's openness to immigration. I think that's fair to say.
You two probably all five.
Yeah, it was legal immigration and illegal immigration.
But there were hardly any rules back then, Bill.
Well, fine. If you want to make a case for open borders, as we had in 1910, I'm open to that. There are laws that should be enforced in my opinion.
But I mean, when we talk about the immigration issue, we have to talk about it historically and in context. And I think oftentimes in the debate, a lot of that context is either willfully lost or just
But this is the discussion the president should be having with Speaker Boehner and with Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, and it's not happening. They're all on vacation. I mean, this is their job.
Oh, I agree.
You know, so I don't get it. This happens to be their job.
I guess, I don't know. I don't think another phone call or 3 more weeks in session is going to make any difference.
No, but I don't see any effort. You know, I mean, all I see is a lot of finger pointing. I see everyone going up to the microphones and saying things. I really don't see them all sitting down to me.
We've got a political situation now where the majority of the Republican base is for the impeachment of the president. Again, do I think the Democrats have played this up to their political advantage?
And there's no way it's going to happen. The leadership is opposed to it.
Yes, and this is just a stifled, gridlocked political situation. And one more phone call, as George said, one more dinner invitation that becomes the talk of all Washington is not going to.
So you give up on democracy?
Nobody has given up on anything.
That's the leadership is tough. Being president is tough, but you have at least got to keep trying. You can't just say I'll go alone.
Quickly.
House Republicans have passed a lot of legislation. People may not agree with it. Senator Reid has refused to bring it up. Some of it, quite a lot of it, has had Democratic support. Some Democratic support.
We got to take a break. Before we do go to that break, our Powerhouse Puzzler, inspired by my friend and GMA co-host Michael Strahan. You see him last night entering the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Great moment for him. Here's the question. Name the president whose library and museum are also in Canton.